Hi, and welcome to THORsday Comics. I'm Tom Scholey, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, and Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, The Adventures of Adam Starr and the Solar Legion. I'm also the author of Witchman, a new superhero comic book which recently had a successful Kickstarter campaign. It's Thor number 145, Abandoned on Earth. And here, for the first time, we're seeing Thor not as Donald Blake, but still as Thor, wearing, civilian clothes and his costume strewn on the ground. So we have a wrap-up of the previous issue where Thor has defeated the two enchanters, and Thor doesn't have any powers, they don't have any powers. We got a little wrap-up here. I never took much stock in this Asgard bit, but I'll admit one thing. I'd sure rather have you with us than against us. Balder is again going through his subplot of having feelings for Sif and feeling tremendous guilt over it. As Thor and Sif walk away, and Sif says to Thor, Sif knows no fear so long as Thor stands at her side. And Balder thinks to himself, would that the ears of Balder might hear such words from one as fair as Sif. But alas, 'tis Thor to whom her heart is pledged. And Thor, who is more than brother to Balder, must ne'er suspect that which lies heavy within my heart. And completely doesn't even notice this gaggle of admirers. I don't know what club he belongs to, but I've got to find out where to join. But Balder only has eyes for Sif. And now we cut back to Asgard. And the previous issue ended on a cliffhanger. We didn't know the outcome of Odin's cosmic battle across the universe with Forsung, the leader of the three enchanters. But now Odin has returned. He stands. Forsung is fallen. Odin takes his talisman and crushes it in his hands. Really great sequence. And now Odin is really feeling his power in this moment. Odin is the power supreme. Odin is the word and the way and the wonder. Let all who live now know them this. Odin is just. Odin is merciful, and yet Odin is a vengeful liege. Odin is an angry liege. Odin is now and forever supreme. And woe to him who strays from righteousness. For the rage of the All-Father is truly eternal, and his judgment all-consuming. This reminds me of Samuel Jackson's monologue in Pulp Fiction. Now the two enchanters who'd been imprisoned have just disappeared, and Thor is doing sort of a post-game with his friends. Would that my father's battle with Forsung doth prove successful, for 'tis my true desire to remain upon earth. Here, in the mortal office of Dr. Don Blake, there is much good that I may do. Asgard doth have many immortals to aid the realm, yet earth has only Thor. But what of thy father's wishes? Surely the all-wise will desire thy return. None do I love more than him who is sovereign of us all, and yet too many times in the past has the god of thunder incurred his regal displeasure. I have no wish to e'er defy his imperial decree, and yet is his blood not mine? Am I less a god than he? But unfortunately, Odin's been listening. Still thy tongue, rebellious one, not a word is uttered that doth not reach the ear of Odin. Forsung hath been vanquished. Now must Asgard claim her own. And so, this is Odin in his terrifying incarnation. This is Odin, the angry father. And I have to say, it had sort of been discussed a little bit in the previous issue that maybe Odin is past his prime. Maybe his days are numbered. And I would guess that Odin probably just barely came through this battle with a victory. And so part of this anger is sort of some, chest beating to kind of show people that, hey, don't count me out just yet. And so there's some, insecurity about that. Balder, the sort of Lancelot of the group, ever the faithful knight, my liege, the heart, the hand, the very life of Balder are thine, as ever to command. The will of Odin is the law supreme, so speaks Sif. So they get assumed into heaven, so be it. But thou, flesh of my flesh, blood of my blood, still thou dost defy me. 'Tis not defiance in my heart, most noble sire, but sorrow. Too long have I dwelled amongst the earthlings. Their cause is my cause. Their destiny must be my destiny. Then so let it be. On earth shalt thou stay, but without the power of Asgard, without the power of the son of Odin. Thus with these words I do leave thee. Thine hammer hath lost its enchantment. The power of the storm hath left thee. No longer canst thou soar like bird in flight. Only thy strength remains, the strength which is thine by royal right. So be it. Odin has taken, all the magic away from Thor. All the magic is gone. And so, but he still has his muscles, and he can lift the things that those muscles can, but he can't do the sort of extraordinary things that his magic brought with him. So, it's a pretty big power downgrade for Thor. He doesn't know what to do now. And part of that is his hammer's no longer magical, so if he taps it on the ground, he can no longer turn back into Donald Blake. So he's lost that Donald Blake aspect of his life as well. So we cut to the Circus of Crime, some characters from very early in 60s Marvel history. We're getting a little rundown of who everybody is and what their powers are. We have the Gambinos, we have Princess Python. Thor is, just dressed in regular clothes, keeps his hammer wrapped in a bag, and the snake attacks him. And of course, he's no pushover. He is still this muscle-bound brute, even though he doesn't have, he can't summon lightning or anything like that. He can do what muscles this size could do. So Princess Python doesn't like what he did to her pet, and now we get this nice splash of the whole crew. And yeah, he can't be Dr. Donald Blake. He doesn't look like Dr. Donald Blake. He doesn't have the medical knowledge of Dr. Donald Blake. And so he applies for a job in their circus as a strongman. The motif of this issue, it's, all these superhero stories are Samson stories. Superman is a Samson. Thor is certainly a Samson. And part of the Samson story is the loss of your power. There comes a moment when you lose your strength, and so that's what we're seeing here. He's lost his strength, and he's sort of earthbound, living in a fallen state because of his defiance of the will of God. He's still got his hammer. He can still throw it. He can still destroy things with it, but it's just going to lay there on the floor, and he has to walk over to pick it up. Saturday morning cartoons. The Fantastic Four, the Beatles, Spidey, Casper, King Kong, Journey to the Center of the Earth, George of the Jungle. The ringleader, the ringmaster, his power is hypnotism. So he hypnotizes Thor because they're going to use Thor as part of their heist. And here's the practice for the heist: to lift up this super heavy bull. Can he do it? Yes, he can. Now, with his full magical Asgard powers, he could lift that bull with one finger, but because now he just has the power inherent in his musculature, he can lift it, but it takes some struggle. And so this is a kind of interesting twist for Thor. And we have had this kind of story before where Odin would decrease his power, have his power. I think this is the first time it's been taken away altogether for an extended period. So it's an interesting place to go for Thor story-wise, sort of inevitable. And it was sort of a standard kind of story that would happen in the Fantastic Four. It would happen in Spider-Man. So now it's Thor's turn. And we're past that point of never-ending innovation in Thor. Jack Kirby has probably proposed the New Gods storyline to Stan by this time. Stan said no, and Jack didn't really press the issue beyond that because almost happy that Stan said no. And so that's probably the direction Thor would have gone in that sort of more and more cosmic vein. But now Jack sort of set that stuff aside, and now they're doing more standard Marvel Comics stories. Now, still very innovative in their own right and just really well executed, but not really like mile a minute like the other ones have. And so now Ringmaster snaps his fingers, gets Thor out of the hypnotic state, and this story will be continued next issue. The twists and turns of a soap opera, having Thor lose his power, become completely earthbound, lose the magic, maybe just as Marvel is kind of losing its magic as Jack Kirby becomes disenchanted with things at Marvel. And Steve Ditko has just recently left Spider-Man, so we're in that phase. But the idea of Thor losing his magic, there is a poignancy to it. Now, speaking of poignancy, the end. You're looking at the final installment of Tales of Asgard. So yeah, let's tip our hats a moment, because Tales of Asgard is one of the finest features in comics history, and we're saying goodbye. And from what I understand, it was Jack's idea to end Tales of Asgard. He sort of told Stan that, it's run its course. We've done as much as we can do with it, so let's end it. But probably ending it because this is where some of Kirby's greatest innovations were coming from, and the story that Jack was telling was naturally heading towards that new god story, the death of the old gods and the birth of the new gods. And had he continued Tales of Asgard, that's probably what would have happened. Made the decision at some point that the new gods is not going to happen at Marvel. I'm going to withhold some things in hopes of a better situation. So thanks to Volstagg and his bumbling, his good humor, his curiosity, his libido, he ended up finding the thing that saved the day, destroyed the 40 Devil Riders, and everybody's cheering. Alibar bows before him. All honor to noble Asgard, her warriors have achieved the impossible. Now only Mogul stands between me and the stolen battle standard of my people. So the battle standard is what Hogun had been looking for in the first place, this symbol of humiliation and defeat. And now he's getting it back. And no matter if 'tis the battle standard thou dost seek, then 'tis thine. 'Twas given me by Mogul to flaunt before thee during the attack. So he's Alibar is handing it over to Hogun, and Hogun has his victory. With this sacred symbol in my hands, once more my people shall be free. And now they're going to go do the mop-up. They defeated Mogul's cavalry. Now it's time to take on Mogul himself. And there he is, flying above in his flying device, which is not a flying carpet, but is viewed as such. He has his doomsday bottle with the potion of spotted plague that he's about to pour on basically everybody. He's gonna dump it as he flies by. Not too different from what Dr. Doom was doing around this time, flying around on the Silver Surfer surfboard and just sort of enacting a reign of terror and spreading toxic smoke everywhere he goes. And so Alibar leads them to Mogul's sort of wizard's chamber with all his mystic paraphernalia. There, by making the mystic gesture of Mogul, I cause an image to appear. He soars above the land of Hogun, clutching a vial in his hand. But why? For what sinister purpose? I know it well. 'Tis the potion of the spotted plague. Only a shattering bolt of temporal force can stop him. Do as I command, thou noble thief. Mouth thee precisely in the words of Hogun. Speak then, grim one, and 'twill be done. So awesomely powerful, so totally destructive is Hogun's spell that we dare not reveal it on this page, which may be seized by non-believers. However, thou hast done it, Alibar. Thou hast created an all-consuming, distance-shattering bolt, which naught can survive. Though the voice was mine and the hands were mine, the spell was thine, grim Hogun. Mogul is destroyed, and 'tis thou who art the liberator of thy land. Now, I would assume, looking at the story that's told in the artwork, that Alibar takes them into this chamber and he, does a spell that defeats Mogul. But I think Stan or Jack or both of them together, it gets amended in the dialogue. From a fan point of view or a reader point of view, it's a little bit anticlimactic or disappointing to have, instead of having, Thor and the sort of, heroes defeat the Horde, to have Volstagg, bumble into the solution, Jar Jar Binks style. And I think a similar thing's happening here, that this has been Hogun's mission, his grudge match, his revenge story, and for the revenge blow to be struck by somebody else, somebody we've only just met a couple issues ago, Alibar. Maybe Stan with his editor's hat on, or maybe Jack himself had second thoughts about that and said, no, Hogun needs to be involved in this final defeat of Mogul. So Alibar's going to do the spell, but it's going to be Hogun's spell. Hogun's going to tell him the spell, and then he's going to do it. That way, Hogun is not sort of sidelined in this final defeat of Mogul. He's part of... Where's our focus? And it's at the beginning of the story, our focus was on Hogun. This is Hogun's story. And so to sort of tie things up, it would be really nice if Hogun's the guy who, punches the bad guy right in the face, and sends them, off the cliff. But instead, it's Alibar, this new guy we've met. But this is Jack Kirby, and Jack Kirby builds worlds off of worlds and then builds worlds on those worlds. So the baton of this story has been passed a bunch of times, and we've been introduced to this character of Alibar, who's sort of Thor of this Xanadu pantheon. And so it's almost like he's become the star of this story, and this could become its own comic, even, the Adventures of Alibar, which I think was probably in Kirby's mind. He was making the new gods. He was trying to come up with different ideas for comics that could become their own thing. So sort of the way for a little bit in New Gods, Forager becomes the main character, becomes the focus, and sort of pulls focus away from Orion and Light Ray. So I think this is like a way to pull Hogun back into this story. But in any event, now Alibar's had this victory, and now Mogul is gone, and Alibar is now the Prince of Xanadu, Prince Alibar. So it's also sort of like, the story of Aladdin, this, the street rat who becomes prince. Thus our saga ends, as all such quests must end, with tyranny destroyed, with freedom triumphant forevermore. For so long as there be evil, so long as there be servitude, so too shall there be champions who ne'er will rest, till all humanity has reached the promised goal of freedom and justice for all. Beginning next issue, the origin of the Inhumans. Enough said. So, we'll be reading that in the next episode. So long, Tales of Asgard. What an amazing accomplishment in comics. I wish it, continued on for 100 more issues, but that just wasn't to be. I'm Tom Scholey, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, and Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, The Adventures of Adam Starr and the Solar Legion. I'm also the author of Witchman, a new superhero comic book which recently had a successful Kickstarter campaign. I'll see you next THORsday.